Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jenn Johnson. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jenn Johnson. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey everyone, how are you doing out there? So at the end of my first podcast with my guest, ER nurse and author Jenn Johnson, I asked her what I ask all guests towards the end of our show. What are 1 to 2 ways women can be braver at work? And I will say I have heard so many different responses over the 3 to 4 years we've been doing this show. But Jenn, she just shocked me. She proceeded to tell me, embrace your villain era. And then I was like, what? It was like, like a record scratch. It was like I stopped in my tracks. What did that even mean? So I learned from Jenn that it means loving yourself enough to consider your own needs. It means that you draw and you hold your own boundaries. It means relishing in self-care, whatever that means to you. And it means putting yourself first. So as I was kind of contemplating this, I don't know if you're going to watch the video version of this, but I felt so like uneasy, like my neck like kind of clenched and my jaw got tight. I was like, "Oh, I felt so guilty easing into this concept." And I'm sure you can relate. So traditionally, we as women, I'm stereotyping here, we are used to putting ourselves lower down on the list and everyone else comes first. So not with this, what I would call scandalous concept. So during my conversation with Jenn, this was our second one. I knew I needed to have her back on. We chatted about, again, what embracing your villain era means to her. How do we embrace our own villain eras? I had so much fun with this. So if you could be any villain character, whether it's like a real person, TV show, whether it's a Disney character, think of the Descendants. Yes, my kids are young enough. So, if you don't know that show, it is the kids of the villain characters. Let me think. Maleficent, for an example. So out of all the villain characters, who would you be? And what are the first steps to embracing our villain era? So what are the first steps to doing that? How do we deal with that dreaded shame or guilt that may pop up when we decide to do this? And how women can support other women in their villain eras. So here is more about Jenn. Jenn Johnson is the founder of RX for Growth and the author of Nursing Intuition. Her career is a testament to dedication, resilience, and compassion. With 16 years of experience as an ER nurse, she has navigated the most demanding and high-pressure healthcare environments, consistently delivering exceptional care to patients in critical need. Her deep understanding of the challenges and rewards of nursing has fueled Jenn's passion for advocating for nurse wellness and professional growth. Her leadership at RX for Growth is marked by Jenn's commitment to transforming the landscape of nurse support services. She has spearheaded initiatives that focus on mentorship, continuing education, and holistic wellness, ensuring that new graduate nurses are equipped with the skills, confidence, and resilience needed to thrive in their careers. In addition to Jenn's clinical and leadership roles, she is an accomplished author. Through her writing, she shares her wealth of knowledge and experiences, offering invaluable insights and inspiration to nurses at all stages of their careers. And I dare say the conversations I've had with her, it's all women, right? So she focuses, her niche is on nursing because that is what her professional life is in. But if you are not in the medical community or the medical field, still listen in because there's great stuff in here. Jenn's work highlights the importance of self-care, resilience, and continuous learning, reinforcing the core values that drive us. So if Brave Woman at Work has made an impact on you, be sure to share it with a friend, family member, or colleague. And of course, your ratings and reviews help the show continue to gain traction and grow. So if you've already left a rating or review, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you haven't downloaded my freebies, check them out at bravewomenatwork.com. The freebies are 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and getting paid, 10 negotiation tips. And just as a teaser kind of a alert, I am working on a new freebie right now. I don't have an ETA when it's going to be available. I'm going to throw out sometime late spring. So I will be talking about that when it comes out. But it definitely is in the self-care genre. And I'm really excited to release it to you here in 2025. The current freebies are workbook style guides, so you can complete them on your own time. And again, they're totally free. So go check them out again at bravewomenatwork.com. Okay, one other announcement. I have been sharing on the podcast about a conference I'm co-hosting this year called Thrive in 2025. It's a women's leadership conference. The dates are June 25th through 28th here in Chicagoland, which is my backyard. So one thing that I wanted to stress, because I haven't mentioned it yet. So this conference is not your regular conference. So you know what I mean. We go to a conference, we attend the 1, 2, 3 days, we get all jazzed up, we go back to work, we get in back into the groove of our busy lives. And what happens? Nothing, nothing. So I was really passionate when I was talking to my co-leader and my business partner, Hope Mueller of Climb Conferences. I wanted this conference to be different. So this conference is a 12-month experience. And so it is going to include the 3 days of the conference, 6+ months of coaching with yours truly in the Brave Circle, which is a group coaching accountability group that will be held monthly for 6 months after the conference is over. A 12-month membership to her C-suite, which is a powerhouse women's networking platform. Some of the women I have met in her C-suite are just, they're life-changing. They're so inspirational, so the only word I can think of is badass. They are so great. And I'm very happy that and I feel blessed that I've met them. And a 12-month membership to Innovation Women, which is a female-led speakers bureau, because part of what we talk about at Brave Women at Work is claiming your voice and advocating for yourself. And the founder, Bobby Carlton, wants to get women on more stages. So if one of the things that's just outside of your comfort zone is learning how to speak in front of groups of people, Innovation Women is where it's at. So typically, like I said, these conferences are 2 to 3 days and then you're thrown back into your life. And it's not the same with Thrive in 2025. We want to walk a line alongside you to incorporate your learnings from the conference into your personal and professional life. So I will just ask you, I am challenging you and asking you to invest in yourself today. So you can learn more about the conference and register at www.thrive-in25.com. I'll repeat that one more time. www.thrive-in25.com. Okay, let's welcome Jenn to the show. Well, hello, Jenn. Welcome back to Brave Women at Work. How are you today?
I'm doing so well. How are you doing?
I am so good. So everyone, this happens. This absolutely happens where I get like this super synergy with all my guests. I love all my guests. So please don't think that if you haven't heard a repeat person, like, oh, she didn't like that person. It's not about that. It's just sometimes like the magic just is a little extra. Like, you know what I mean? It just kind of, it's like, oh, whoa. So Jenn threw a truth bomb. So okay, I'm going to go back to the prior
Go back.
podcast. Yeah, go back. But she threw a truth bomb. So I ask all of my guests at the end of the show, like, what are 1 to 2 ways you can be a braver woman at work? And Jenn said something that kind of blew my mind. And I'm like, wait. She's like, you have to embrace entering your villain era. And I was like, what? What do you mean? So here we are. We're going to talk about entering and embracing your villain side, which I don't know about you, Jen, and everyone listening, but I was raised to be like a good girl, like I'm in the air quotes, right? And like
Yes.
being a villain is like not a good thing. So
No.
that's why I was like, we've got to bring this like more to light, give some more oxygen to this fire. So, all right, Jen. So if someone is listening to this first, this is
Yes.
going to be a repeat for our folks to listen to the first show, but I want to make sure you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah. So I'm Jenn Johnson. I'm an ER nurse of over 16 years. I'm based out of Hamilton, Ontario. I've worked hospitals big and small, anywhere from it's just me running the ER to trauma centers, pediatric emergencies, stroke centers, the like, and pretty much everything in between. And going through, being a wife, being a mother, working through COVID, COVID broke me, very, very simply put. And it was with that break that then, it was the ever more present idea that I need to put myself first. I need to do things for me because, my husband, while he's supportive, he's doing his own thing. He was trying to get through COVID. He was still working also because he was frontline. So we were both just in the thick of it, just trying to get through day by day with a 4 and 5 year old at the time with no daycare.
Wow. Wow.
So I worked all nights, he worked all days, passing shifts in the night. But during the day, I was up all day with the kids. I'd go to work, stay up all night, come home, stay up all day,
Wow.
go to work, I'll stay up all night. So I was a basket case. And by the time things finally started opening up a little bit, daycare picked back up, I was like, okay, I very obviously need to focus on myself. And with that came my debut novel, Nursing Intuition: How to Save Your Gut, or How to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Sanity, and Survive Your Career, which was the idea that nursing, we do use our intuition more often than not. We just don't talk about it. And now bringing the science behind it and a lot of my ER experiences to light, with supporting information. And then also it came with this idea of embracing your villain era, which, you know, to many of us, we were raised to be the good girls. I'm an eldest daughter. So the ongoing joke is we all enter healthcare to care for others, and we're expected to be the
Mm,
more mature and to be the good girls. And guess what? Being the good girl got me burnt out, looking at myself in the mirror going like, who the heck are you? And it wasn't until I started putting myself first and my needs first that I finally kind of came to a point where I'm like, oh, I do deserve this. I do need this. And it was my husband who at the time had said, "Oh, well, you're putting yourself first. Well, that's selfish." Like, pardon me. No, I'm finally reaching out for the help that I like. I'm finally asking for help because again, the hyper independence is a trauma response, and so I, push through and I can do it all and I can handle it all, and getting to the point of finally asking for help and then being, denied it from family who had said that, oh, I'll be there in a heartbeat. No, no.
no.
The one time I asked for help and granted both my side and my husband's side, asked for help, and my parents were my mother was petrified of COVID, so she just kind of shut down mentally.
Mm,
And my mother-in-law, who lives way up north, just said no. So I was like, oh, looking at my husband going like, okay, so it's really just the two of us. And that's as much as we can count on. And so getting to the point finally of getting therapy and getting on antidepressants for the first time ever and taking the time to do things that made me happy, suddenly we're being deemed very selfish. So I'm like, well, if this is me entering my villain era, then guess what? I'm gonna do it. And so writing the book was very villainous because it's a very, woo-woo topic. Putting myself first, dropping down to part-time was very selfish. Starting agency nursing is, deemed selfish because I'm finally being paid what I'm worth.
mm,
But the government and the corporations don't like it because I'm expensive. Yes, I am. But guess what? I'm gonna do it. And so, doing all these things that a good girl would do, can actually be so fun and so liberating. And I'm doing things now that I never in a million years would have dreamed that I'd ever do. So
Oh,
it's
so good.
if I can help others break free of, I'm supposed to be the good girl, I'm supposed to be the good wife, I'm supposed to be the good mom, forget it. It's not happening. It's not doable. It's time we all start taking stock of what we're worth and how hard we're working, and start putting up some boundaries, and really, self-care. I once heard a quote that discipline is actually the highest form of self-care.
Mm.
Just because it's hard, and you want to not do the things. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to work out. I don't want to get 8 hours of sleep because I've got this idea and I want to run with it. But it's no, I need to sit down, and I need to eat, and I need to have days where I do nothing. And I can have a dirty house, and that's fine. It's all these different ideas of what the perfect 50s housewife should be doing, let alone throwing in a full-time job, and no supports, um
Mm.
that really led to this kind of embracing this.
Yes. So I want to just normalize it. So we've used the terms like bad girl, like growing up and don't
Hmm.
want to be a bad girl. So now people might be like, oh, well, the idea of villain is just like another word for being bad, right?
Yeah.
I think we're just like hyperbole, everyone. Like we're just stretching it into something fun. What this boils down to is that you've decided to put yourself first. You've
Hmm.
decided to take care of yourself. You've decided to make decisions that really fully support you. And as a result, will be better for your corporation, will be better for your boss, will be better for your team, your family, your kids. Because at the end of the day, if you're a happier and healthier human, so will everyone else. It's just deemed in our culture to be selfish. And
Yeah.
so that's why I knew we needed to talk about this today, because I'm like, it's really not selfish, but it is pervasive. And
Yeah.
so I'll give a couple examples because I think after we talked, I thought a lot about it. Like I know we were chit-chatting before we hit record, and you've been thinking a lot about it. I'm like, you know what? I think that this was the year 2024 as we're recording this. This will come out in 2025, but I I realized that this 2024 was the year that I entered my villain era. And I'll give a couple examples. So when I was in college, I did a lot of international travel. I was a double foreign language major. And so I just was like really into like travel and exploration. And then I kind of just, like so many of us, we get into the career grind, we have kids, we travel with our families. And I didn't realize, Jen, that I had lost that kind of like badassery, I guess, if you will, like about
Yeah,
like traveling on my own. And so I
absolutely.
I have sent sent so many thank yous to my other friend, another I'm more gonna say Jenny. So okay, so you're a Jen, I'm a Jen. There's a Jenny. I promise no more Jens on this conversation. But she said, "Hey, do you want to go on an international trip with me?" And I was like, yes. And so we went and she exposed me to that. And then after that, I got an invite the fall of this year that I couldn't pass up to truly go on a solo trip. So it was like my friend Jenny teed up this beautiful awakening of, oh, I actually have this part of myself and I can step away from my kids. And my husband is amazing. So everyone, much gratitude to having an amazing partner that is so good with our children. So I want to understand you to understand that I come from a privileged place. But then I got an opportunity to go on a solo trip to Greece in the fall, and I did it. I did it. And you know what? I am so much happier. And I've had some, my kids, I have two daughters, and they said, Mom, you're leaving us. And I go, but I'm showing you also what's possible.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a balance of, did I cry at the airport? Yes, I did. Did I
Hmm.
feel bad a little bit? Yes, I did. But did I stretch myself out of my comfort zone and embrace the villain inside of me to like say, yeah, I really need to do this for myself? Yes,
Hmm.
I did. And so And I guess once you open the door, you tell me, Jen, like, I don't know if you can unopen it. I like now I think that I've got the villain cape on. I don't know. What do you think?
I love the villain cape. I specifically when I thought about, we talk about branding and blah blah blah, and I'm a nurse. I don't understand branding. I don't know much about business and all this kind of stuff. Like it's been a very quick learned experience. So when I was looking at other nurses and what they were doing, there was one nurse who's a nurse writer and she teaches a course for nurse writing and that kind of thing. But she's got these bright, brilliant red glasses that remind me of like Sally Jesse Raphael,
Oh, yes.
like the big, just super bold. And I'm like, but I remember those. So I'm like, okay, I don't know much about branding, but I know that I know her by those glasses. So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find the funkiest pair of glasses that I can find. And sure enough, I bought them. And so, vooglam.com, shout out to them because I get at least one compliment a day on them. They're
Oh,
funky, they're
wow.
different.
Okay, good to know. Okay.
And it's kind of like it's just something to kind of set you apart just a little bit. And and I joke that I bought them for my villain era, so I get to put them on every morning and go, okay, I'm doing it, this is me. And you know have I already traveled again? Same thing, I really haven't traveled much alone,
Yes.
but right before COVID I ended up being felt like I was being called to go to Salem, Massachusetts, so I'm like, I'm gonna go. Had to go, went, had a brilliant time, had so much fun, found myself for sure, and was just like, okay, so I can travel alone. Like I've never traveled alone, I don't know. Did it, just drove, did it, gone. Went again after COVID, and again had another blast, went strictly by myself. And so now it's
Huh.
like that's my space, that's my thing. So my kids are like, Mom, we want to go to Salem. I'm like, I don't know if I want you to go to Salem. like I don't, it's kind of my, like, that's my mental spot. Like that's a place where there was no responsibilities, there was no time demands, there was nothing asked of me except for to go where I want to go, do what I want to do, eat what I want to do. Ate so much ice cream that it wasn't even funny. And had dinner by myself, got to enjoy a glass of wine by myself, got to and originally the trip was supposed to be with a bunch of girlfriends who I kind of knew, even planning it a year in advance. I'm like, everybody's going to bail, and that's okay because I will happily go all by
Wow.
myself. And so sure enough, everybody bailed. And everyone's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "No, no, no. It's fine. It's
Feel like
really
it's
don't
okay,
feel
actually, for
it's
real.
it's actually this is perfect." So got this, half of a beautiful century home to myself, and it was redone. It was gorgeous. Loved it. But, got a taste for it. And then with the book and traveling, so got to go to two conferences, one in September, one in October. And, again, same thing. My poor husband got to be a single parent for about 2, 3 weeks because I was a zombie before and after.
Wow. Okay.
And at the same time, I'm like, I feel bad, yes, but he's a grown man. He's almost 44. And he is also a parent. So it's fine. Like it's not like I'm having to grill a babysitter about watching them 24/7, They're going to school. Trevor made the accommodations to work from home, which was actually really nice. I had extra babysitters teed up ready to go just in case. It was all done. And I'm like, you know what? Just walking away. Did I cry? No.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I
No,
cried. I did
I was
cry.
like, you know what? No, I was just so excited to get out there and to promote the book and to meet other nurses and to go see Nurse Blake and do all these things. And so, my husband kind of said like, "Oh, how was your vacation?" I'm like, "It was a workcation." Like it was work. It
Okay,
really
that's
was
cool. A workation.
workation because like truly, yes, you know, had I brought him, I still would have been working the venues for like NurseCon. I was setting up, I was selling, I think I only made one. There was up to 40 like classes that you could go to in the couple of days. I only made one
Wow.
because I was so busy, doing other things and getting things ready to go and this, that, and the other. So I mean, I wouldn't have really even had much time to spend with him, even if he came. Same thing with Vegas. Man, it was like 12-hour days with health and that going on. Like it was insanity. And really my focus needed to be on selling, on making connections, on hanging out with people and getting to know people and figuring stuff
Mm-hmm.
out for myself. So had he been there, you can't help but mentally go into mom and wife mode
Yes.
versus going as a business person, mode where I'm here to connect and I'm here to sell and I'm here to make my mark and move and get one step closer to the next. So, you
Talk
know,
about brand. There's your brand coming out right there. It's like kind of going full circle on that, you know? Okay, so think of like the villainous like stratosphere. Like, both of us
yeah,
have kids, and even if you don't have kids, like play along with us, right? Like think
yeah.
back to your own childhood or maybe to something you've seen. Like what villain would you be? So to you, Jen, what villain would you be and why?
Oh my gosh. So I getting out of the Disney stratosphere, I think coming into it where Mrs. Doubtfire. So watching Mrs. Doubtfire as a kid, and they have that party scene where Robin Williams, he's throwing this huge party. They've got animals, it's massive. Everybody's having so much fun. The wife and mom comes in and she's like, animals, and she just shuts it down and she freaks out, and that's what ends up they split because of this. This was the last straw. And watching it as a kid, you're going, oh my God, what a bummer. She's so, God, she's the worst. You watch it as a mother and you're like, oh my God, he had a party in the house and the house is trashed and she's come home from work and he's got animals eating the couch. Like, so it's just like you finally go, oh, that's what that was about. Like you had no idea as a kid because you can't understand as the role of mother and the mental shift that then is paired with a very hormonal shift after you have kids, if you're able to have them yourself, and just that shift that all of a sudden something is clinging to you 24/7 three
Yes.
sixty five for at least 5 years before you finally get to kind of go uh and push them off to the side. Okay, go to school. Like holy cow. And I mean, it's that shift that all of a sudden, you're the responsible one. You're the default parent. You're the one that's expected to get all the gifts for the teachers and the bus driver, and you're the one making the appointments to take them to healthcare, the docs and follow up
Yes.
with that. And you know, I hear this every now and again where it's, if you think that your partner's engaged with what's going on the daily, ask them, what's the name of the kid's teacher? When was the last time the kid went to the dentist? When was the last time the kid went to the doctor? What medical conditions does the kid have? And there are a lot of male parents who have no idea what's going on with their kids. And so it's like, thank you. I
Wow.
remember when the kid were younger, you'd have to almost like give report to be like, hey, you over there, you're default parent now. I'm walking out of the room. It's on you. And I had to do that all the time, not knowing that I felt that way and that, that shouldn't even happen, but that was the way it was. And so it's looking back, you're like, man, there are a lot of expectations and I hate expectations. Like I
Yeah,
absolutely
let's get rid of that word, the whole
I
expectations
can't,
thing. Yeah, just can't.
if you want to fail at life, live by others' expectations, because and that's again half the villain era is like just ditching other people's expectations of how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to wear, who you're supposed to be, other people's opinion. Like I have no right um knowing what other people's opinions of me are because it doesn't matter.
I love it. Okay, so I just thought of a non Disney character. Although my daughter
Okay,
just played Cruella de Vil in The
love it.
Descendants. So like I mean,
Yes.
I think she's super styling. Okay, so we'll like throw her as an
Fair.
honorable mention.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm thinking, and this might be a little bit of a twist, but there is a book, and several of my friends will know. So Eat, Pray, Love, right?
Yep. Yep.
I think she, like Elizabeth Gilbert in real life, like has
Yeah.
been living her villain era for a really long time.
She's probably the OG next to the women who in the 50s, 60s, 70s who decided to be not get married, be childless, live their own lives.
Yeah.
Those women were, the OG villain era because they were going against social norms
Like
from
the
the
whole time
get-go.
from like
From
from
the
like
get-go.
yeah. And the reason I say that, and I want to bring in, because we've been talking a lot about like mom stuff, but for those that decide to be childless by choice, like bravo, right? And there's
Kudos.
like I
Kudos.
know there's like a part of
Oh,
me that like, and my husband's like, I don't know if you would have had kids, right? Love my children, but part of me has that Elizabeth Gilbert in her, right? So when I read
hmm
that book, every time I read that book, I cry, right? Because I think there's a part of me that's her, and then a part of me that's mom, and a part of me that's a corporate business person, and all of those parts that we can embrace, right? But yeah, I would say that she is my OG, and I have to remind myself of like I can be part of her too. So
Yeah.
I love her. So
Yeah.
okay, so there might be women going, all right, well, okay, you've sold me. Okay, I want to do this. I want to,
Yeah.
embrace my villain era. So I always talk about like what are the smallest steps. So I'll
Yeah.
tell you a story. One of my other dear friends, another mom friend in this case, I have a friend with childless by choice. I have a friend also that is a mom and kind of the head of that household, right? Like knows command central, knows every little
Yeah.
detail. Um, we're all going, the three of us are going to a yoga and meditation retreat next year in Montana.
Nice.
I'm very pumped. And my mom friend was like, what about the mom guilt? And I just said to her, I go, you're texting the wrong person. Like you need to get over yourself and report back. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that was hers, I think, one of her small steps to embracing her villain area. And now she's all pumped. I've talked to her husband that I've known a long time. I'm like, you don't hate me. He goes, no, I told her to go. So, I mean, really good
Oh.
partner there, like trying to kind of embrace that. So, Jen, what would you say? Like, what steps would you recommend for any woman listening that's like, I want to drink this Kool-Aid. I want to be part of the villain era. So, like, what would you start with?
Easiest way to start is, you know, just by sitting down and saying like, what makes me happy? Take
Mm,
out all the roles that you're carrying, right? So I'm carrying the nurse role, I'm carrying the entrepreneur role, I'm carrying the mother role and the wife role and the friend role and the sister and all these kind of different roles. Let's go way back. And, what made me happy growing up? Well, writing actually made me really happy growing up. Like I used to write little stories in grade 7 at least, maybe
mm.
earlier. And I just goof around and just write, and that's what made me happy, and music makes me happy, and finding myself. And so trying to get back to her, the whole inner child healing bit is, I think, more to it than we realize with the whole villain era thing. But just sitting down and what makes you happy, blaring out the your music when you're driving and not giving a crap who's like looking at you, and
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. That's key. Next is just like saying no, and taking people out of your life if you feel like the only reason they have to be in your life is because they're family, or you've known them for forever,
Mm,
or you
mm.
went to high school with them, or they gave me a gift, so I've got to give them a gift kind of friendships. And so
Wow.
it's
Okay.
removing that daily negativity that is very insidious, in that you just go onto your Facebook page or your Instagram page and you're just scrolling mindlessly, because we all do it. And sure enough, and then it's, a post pops up that really triggers you. And then all of a sudden you're deep in
Mm.
this trigger and you're having to deal with it and blah, blah, blah. Instead, block, delete, mute, whatever you feel comfortable doing. And then you don't have to deal with that. You've just eliminated that trigger.
That's
Bye.
so good. Okay, so I've got one more to add
Yes.
before we move on is I've had to learn this has been really hard one. So like if I do want to keep a family relationship in my life, but in order to keep it, I need to like let's say like drop that expectation again
Yes.
of what the relationship is versus what my expectations of what it should be are. And
Yes.
as a result, maybe I don't want to say lie, but be a little bit more selective about how I share things or when I share
hmm
things. Like maybe I'm still like processing something, or maybe I'm not strong enough to hear like criticism or really negative feedback or like a wall of fear coming at me or whatever from a
Yeah.
family member or a friend. And that's taken me a long time because one of my values is being super authentic and like super like here I am, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And like take it or leave it kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, but that's always when I do that, it's like hurting me because then when and you're like going and you're like hoping the relationship is different. And then when it's the
Yeah.
same, like it's just pain. It's like masochism over and over and over
Yes.
again. And I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to learn, I'm like, oh, I can love them and kind of cull the relationship. I can kind of like shape the relationship I want with this person and share when I'm ready to share. So big learning for
Absolutely.
me. And in my mind, it's kind of going into the villain era. I don't know.
Absolutely. It's boundaries. It's just
There you
boundaries.
go, which is
That's
hard for
that's it.
me.
It's hard for everybody,
I
especially the
know.
overachieving people pleasers who, you're supposed to be
I
nice to everybody and you're
know.
supposed to not be rude and you're supposed to, a creepy guy is like talking to you and you're supposed to placate them,
Mm,
because that's what society expects us to do, because heaven forbid, they get mad or they call us a bitch or something worse. And
oh.
it's just like, it's a lot of it has been, keeping up society expectations. And then some of it's just pure survival,
It is
right?
true. It is absolutely true. So let's kind of like move towards like guilt and shame. So like I've
Yeah.
shared this a couple times. So if you're going to enter your villain era, we're here to tell you like once you decide and like have some fun, like decide on a
Yeah.
character. Like we've given you some real world characters. You can use a Disney character. And we'd love to hear, by the way, Jen and I would love to
Oh my
hear.
God.
It would be so fun. Let's do like a montage of like what we hear back. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, because truly, like, the more I see the villain origin stories, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, no wonder Cruella's like that. Look at her origin story. You're like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense now that I've got all this background information. So it's the same thing, right?
Yes.
This is just all of our origin stories as to how we get to the villain era.
I know. So we want to hear your either your story or we want to hear like what villain you choose or
An
whatever.
example,
Yeah, an
something.
example, anything. And so what I want to share though is that just because you make the decision doesn't mean you're not going to have like the guilt, the shame. Like there's
Yeah.
going to be stuff that comes up, right? So that's part of like the human experience. So I don't want you to think like, oh, just because I decide to be a villain and I'm going to be, whoever, Cruella de Vil, like I'm going to just be there. No, no, no. You're going to face some stuff as you're going through that. So what would you say, and maybe you can use your own experience, because you obviously have gotten through some big stuff to like feel like whatever, like
Yeah,
I'm gonna do it.
I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. But how? Like, because women that are just starting, they might be like, "Well, thanks a lot. I picked a character, I did the thing, and now I feel like crap." Right?
Yes.
So, like, how do we
Because
start moving through? I guess is the question.
yeah, small steps to start,
Hmm.
like kind of, carving out time for yourself and
Hmm.
maybe, it's knowing from the get-go that anytime you want to introduce anything into your life, you're going to have to take away from somewhere else right now. So
Hmm.
whether you're taking away from sleep, whether you're taking away from time
Hmm.
with your spouse, whether you're taking time away from work, you're still going to have to take away time from somewhere because there's only the infinite amount of time.
Hmm.
So, and the guilt is built in. The mom guilt, the female guilt, all of it is complete BS, but it's been a way to keep us all in check for a very, very long
Hmm.
time.
So that goes to something critical, right? Like
Mhm.
Mean Girls, they had a Mean Girls reboot movie, right? Like where women aren't supporting other women. So
Yeah.
I want to normalize here in my little, like our little bubble of conversation that we want to help other,
Yes.
like women need
Yes.
to help other women step into their villain era.
Yes.
Because when you do that, we all like you had this break, right? And like obviously you came to this like power and sense of personal freedom. And now I bet, I'm guessing that you still probably feel a little bit more of personal freedom because you've dropped other people's expectations. You've told your husband, like, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
so, like, you are a different person, but we
Mhm.
need to support one another to do that. So I remember when my first daughter was born and I had postpartum, which I've shared on the podcast before. And I'm in this moms group, which was not a good call for me, Jen. You think like moms groups and these women, and if
No. Moms
anyone,
groups are nuts.
okay, so if anyone does this for their kids, I applaud you. So please don't think that I'm hating on you because of this. But they were the mom types that were like making their kids baby food and like, like using cloth diapers and things like that. And they were, like a little bit more down on us ladies that work, out of the house and, stuff like
Hmm.
that. And that was the moms group that I found in my local area, right? So I thought it was the right thing because I was new, so green, and it just made me miserable and my confidence in the tank. So
Yeah.
that's an example of how like women aren't supporting other women. So what would you say, like, what wisdom would you say, like, how we can all as women support one another as we truly like enter the villain era?
Yeah. It's again like all what's the thing? Rising tide raises all boats.
Yes.
So, you helping out somebody else, maybe they then, the ripple effect, they then help somebody else and they
Mm.
help somebody else and they help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
This is the whole hope of being able to support each other. Because again, like the mean girl era still continues, nursing, eating their young. It's finally starting to kind of come down a bit, but again, depending on your unit and what you're seeing, it's still really prevalent. It's hard when you're struggling and then, you just shit downhill, right? Like
Yeah.
you just like, oh, I'm just gonna lose it on the barista because like my coffee's not right. Well, is it life or death? No, it's
No.
coffee. And I understand. I live on coffee and caffeine and spite. So like, so yes, coffee is life, but what are you doing? Like, you can't see that what is that accomplishing? Like, yes, it made you feel, this much bigger for a half a second, but guess what? It's probably ruined her whole day. So like be mindful of the way you're treating people and treat others like you want to be treated. Again, it just the
Hmm.
basic necessities of, pleases and thank yous and holding the door and when you see another mom struggling, just ask her like, hey, you're doing a great job. Like, you do you and is there anything I can do? Do you want to walk away for a half a second while I keep an eye on the kid, knowing full well that I'm a stranger? So it's probably going to be a no, but it's understanding that everybody's struggling and everybody's fighting a battle that we can't see. So you being miserable and adding to that isn't helping anybody. It's definitely not helping you. So just be mindful of how you're treating people and it costs nothing to be nice. And I'm just a bunch of like platitudes at this point.
No, it's totally fine. But what I will say on the corporate side is like, let's say you're in a meeting and you're sitting next to a woman and she said an idea and then that idea was completely passed over and then it was repackaged and given credit to somebody else.
Oh,
So if you have that, I'm sure someone has had it, I've had it, stand up for that other woman.
yeah. Be
Like
like,
be
I'm
like,
sorry, wasn't
"Hey,
that Susan's idea last week?
totally. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
you
I'm
stand up for
sorry.
the woman or encourage her to ask a question or anything like that. Anything on the corporate setting, like, give her an opportunity if you're in a leadership position to lead a project.
Yeah,
Something where, she can enter into that because I think there is a direct connection with confidence and the villain era. You can't not you have to have some sort of confidence or the ability to let go of expectations and have self-awareness before you can actually, go and be like, hey, this is the cape of the villain that I'm going to put
yeah,
on, right? So
yeah.
please, as a PSA, please help every woman you can to like get to this stage. The last question I have, the last two questions I have is the idea of so I'm a recovering perfectionist. So there might be people like me that have that black and white thinking. So you might be thinking like, oh, we're going to all go entirely to the villain era. And I think that yes, like when we get to the villain area, it might shift and like be a little radical. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, screw you. Like, all that kind of stuff. But then there is a central, like there is a neutral point that I don't know, Jen, if you've gotten to, but I have the ability now to be in my villain era when I want to be in my villain era and be in my feminine, communal, helpful, good girl side of
Yeah.
myself when I want to. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that because I don't want women like, as we're ending our call today to be like, oh, well, I just have to abandon all goodness and like enter the villain. No, it's not either or, it's
Yeah.
and the pendulum will swing and it can settle. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's just a matter of like just putting you first. Like if you feel better, being extra nice and doing, very feminine things and roles, like absolutely go nuts. Um, but just know that like when something comes up where it's an expectation or somebody's asking something, oh, I know you love to bake, but I've got this party. Would you bake 45 cupcakes tonight? And you're like, ugh, like really? You're like, oh, lie. Honestly, lie. That's fine. Nobody knows. So, and welcome to the ER where I'm lying a lot of the time. Oh, the doctor will be right here. I don't know where your test results are. Oh, I can't say. There's a lot of things where it's these half truths where, you're getting out of a bind, just the kind of bending the truth just a little bit. Obviously, like you're not lying about major life and death things, but it's, oh, I'm really sorry. I've got something that's come up. Like I had a friend at work somebody that I'm close with, but is a little bit of a time suck and, constantly is asking things of me with no reciprocation whatsoever. I'm starting to realize that this is the relationship that we have. And so when somebody else had posted, oh, hey, I just need this day off. This other woman, this friend of mine texted me privately to be like, hey, before you reply to so-and-so, can I have that day off? And I'm like, what a dick move. Like, that's kind of, man, like, way to undercut. Like,
Yeah.
so, and I kind of said to her, I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. I have my sister's birthday. My sister's birthday, like, it's that weekend, but we have nothing planned. And so she's like, oh,
Whatever.
darn. And I'm like, honestly, the number of times that I've swapped shifts for you so that you can go do things, I've done countless, probably like at least 8 to 10 times in the last 2 years
Wow.
alone, where I switched for you. It wasn't for me. Um, and every time I ask for something, I'm getting nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going away. Oh, I'm doing something else. Fine. That's fine. But just know that that's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And here I am now saying, oh, I'm really sorry. I really do want to go and to the original poster to be like, hey, do you need that night off? Like I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted, but if this other person is still working, it would get me in a heap of trouble. And again, villain era in me is kind of wanting to push the button just a little bit to kind of get that person to kind of check herself a bit, to be like, hey,
Come on.
it was kind of a dick move to undercut, her first because she just happened to post first. That's sorry.
Exactly. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
great example. Thank you for sharing that. That's fun. So, we mentioned it in the last call, but I want, as we're ending our podcast. So, where can women find your book, Nursing Intuition, and your work online?
Yeah, so you can find me at rxforgrowth.com. You can find me TikTok and Instagram at ernurse.jen. LinkedIn is Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. And I'm probably the most active on LinkedIn, to be truthful. Yeah, you can pretty much find me anywhere. I understand that Jenn Johnson is kind of a ridiculously common name.
Right.
But even on Amazon, if you search like Jennifer A. Johnson RN, you can find all of my books
We'll
and
put all the links. Yeah, we'll put
yeah,
all the links in
absolutely.
the show notes. So thank you for sharing that. And then as we close here, so I just want to remind everyone. So we want to hear, so Jen and I want to hear when and if you decide to enter your villain era. So you can
Yes.
send me an email. So we'll start with me at hello@bravewomenatwork.com. And then for fun, you can share the social posts of the show and like tag me on social media. LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook is where I live, predominantly LinkedIn and Instagram. And then I'm going to enter you. So tag me and I'll enter you in to win a copy of Brave Women at Work Lessons in Leadership. So
Nice.
please, 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 like we want to hear, because we want you to have boundaries, say no. We want you to lose expectations and be the happiest and truest version of yourself this year and all of the years to come. So,
Yeah.
Jen, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, until next time, be well. Well, that's a wrap on my discussion with Jen today. I hope you found our conversation fun, valuable, and inspiring. As a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, embrace your villain era and be brave.